Today's presenters are Thomson Reuters Director of Commercial Engagement, Ofer Harari, and Lucidworks CTO and co-founder, Grant Ingersoll. We will get started with Ofer's part of today's presentation, so thank you for joining us today, Ofer.
Thank you, Aliyah. So we start with let's start with quick introductions. Grant will introduce himself on the Lucidworks part. My name is Ofer Harari. I'm from the Thomson Reuters Corporate Technology. I joined Thomson Reuters in 2008 to lead the natural language processing service called OpenCalais. So since 2008, we have been working on different types of natural language processing use cases. The real commercial brand name of that is called now Thomson Reuters Intelligent Tagging. It's primarily used within a lot of platforms within Thomson Reuters, but we also offer that service to our clients as well. And we'll talk about intelligent tagging today and how intelligent tagging is helping the Lucidworks Fusion to be a much more powerful search engine. So let's start with a little bit overview of intelligent tagging, what it is, and also do a quick demo. Intelligent tagging is a service, web service that takes unstructured content and makes it into a machine-readable structured metadata that describes the unstructured. So unstructured would be any narrative text. Primarily, we're focusing on news content or broker research or conference call transcripts, focusing on the financial use cases. And out of that, it's important to be able to identify what that content is about, to be able to properly mine the content, search, and find what you're looking for. And sometimes even find what you didn't mean to look for, but you actually found using the intelligent metadata. So things that we're able to find are company names, people, financial events. Financial could be management change in a company, or a company earnings announcement, or a buyback of shares that company announced, things like that. Another important capability that we provide in a structured way are topics. So topics would be more of a thematic description of what the document is about. It could be, this is about a particular industry, like the consumer electronics or pharmaceutical or things like that. So topic is very important on the financial domain. So taking the unstructured into structured, this is what the intelligent tagging service does. The structured metadata is then used by the search engine to really make the search much more powerful, leveraging the semantic metadata. When we look at a research type workflow, on the left side you will see the different types of content coming in from news, broker research, sometimes social media. It will be able to identify the entities, not just identify the entities, but identify names, but also identify the identity of those entities. So if we're finding a company name, its company names could be different variations of the same name, but eventually you want to know who that company is. So it's eventually a unique identifier, which we call Perm ID, and everything is resolved by intelligent tagging into those unique identifiers. So identifying entities is one thing, but the real challenge which intelligent tagging is helping solve is finding the identity behind those entities. So everything is mapped to those unique identities. And that really solves a lot of ambiguity problems. So you won't have the same company in different names in your database. You will have always the same company name with the same unique identifier. And that's how it will be represented in the database and through the search. The other thing that we provide is relevance score. So a typical industry report could mention many companies, or a news story could mention 10 or 15 companies. But the question is, what are the really one or two companies that this document is about? Because if I want to search for a company, I want to find the documents that are most relevant to the companies that I'm looking for. So relevancy is something that intelligent tagging provides, and Lucidworks Fusion engine leverage those scores to provide much better ranking on the search. And so eventually, after relevance, the search provides the actual search results based on the metadata. A little bit about the Perm ID that I mentioned before. So it stands for Permanent Identifier. We represent in Thomson Reuters, all of our information model is based on Permanent Identifier and having one version of the truth. So a company identity in our database will be represented as a unique identifier. That unique identifier is never changed, so it's permanent. It's an open identifier. We open that in the permid.org website, which each one of you can access and log into. And it's maintained. So the analysts in Thomson Reuters who are maintaining data on companies, they maintain the identity of that company, the correctness of the data behind it. So the Perm ID is the representation of those entities in a very accurate way and very uniquely. So there won't be any duplication of those companies. This is an example of using a Perm ID of Lucidworks as a company. So Thomson Reuters website, this is the view that you would see in the permid.org website. And if you use this permanent identifier URI, you will get to the record of Lucidworks as a company, and you can see basic information about Lucidworks. All that data is available free of charge, and you can even download that. You can see the list of officers and directors, and Grant will follow my demo after that. Let's go and do a demo. So let's start with a story and see how we go from unstructured to structured. So this is an example of unstructured content. It's a story about Uber strikes a deal with related to self-driving cars. This is obviously an unstructured text. If you want to make sense of it, you need to, in a machine-readable way, to understand what it is. So when you tag it with intelligent tagging, when you apply the intelligent tagging service, this is the structured way of representing what the document is about. So it's the same content, but this is a visual way to look at the different types of metadata. On the left side, you can see the different types of metadata that can be extracted from entities to relations to industries, social tags, which is type of topics, and then our Thomson Reuters financial topics. Let's look at a few of the types of metadata. Companies. You see, this document is about quite a few companies. For each company, sorry about the boxes popping up. For each company, you can see the relevance score. So it will tell you which company is more important. It's obviously about Uber and Daimler because they are striking a deal. You can see also the identity. So it finds Uber. Uber is mentioned as Uber, but really it's the Uber Technologies, Inc. That's the official name as it stands in the Thomson Reuters Company Authority. And you can see also some relationship mentions around the company Uber here. So you mentioned labor issues and business relations. All those are mentioned in the text and are called relationships or business events. If you click here, it will go to the Uber Perm ID. So that's what I call the business card, the main data on Uber technologies. This is how Uber technologies will be represented in the database and in the search engine. And it will be unique across all content sets. So there won't be Uber or Uber technology. It will be this number with this name. You can see different types of hierarchy relationships. So Mercedes-Benz here is mentioned, but it also tells us that it's a subsidiary of Daimler. And this data is taken from the Thomson Reuters Financial Organization Authority. So the corporate hierarchy is taken and provided by intelligent tagging from the Thomson Reuters databases, even though the parent company might not be mentioned. So this financial relationship is provided by intelligent tagging. Let's look at other types of entities. This is a person, so the name Travis, he is the CEO of the company. You can see here is also mapped to the record of this person. And if we use that number, it's not just a name, it's really the identity, who exactly this person is. This person is Travis Kalanick, and he is the CEO of Uber. And if we go and pull the record based on the number of this person in our database, we can see the full biography of this person. You can see his name here, where he went to school, previous positions, even we can open how much he makes based on filings and things like that. So again, finding companies, finding people, but not just the names, really the identity behind it, and that keeps consistency across all of the database. You can see also here relationship, mentions of products of a company. It could be, a car is the product of the company, and technologies, which quite important when you look for documents about specific technology, and topics. So all those topics are provided by intelligent tagging and are used by the Fusion search engine, and those are very related, very related to the document, and they are shared across different documents. So when you search for car sharing, even though car might not be mentioned explicitly in the document, you will get all the documents that are about car sharing. This taxonomy is taken from Wikipedia, so we mine Wikipedia, and this taxonomy of topics, which are much more, I would say, defined and maintained, are the topics that are maintained by the Thomson Reuters taxonomies on specifically on financial use cases. With that, I think we covered the main capabilities of intelligent tagging that are then used by the Fusion Lucidworks search engine. So let's go back to you, Grant, to talk about how you leverage this technology into the search engine.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ofer. Let me, while we switch over, let me just get my screen sharing going here, and I'll give a quick introduction to Lucidworks and explain a little bit about Fusion. We'll talk about some common use cases that we share between the platforms here, and then I'll finish up by kind of echoing the flip side of what Ofer was talking about on the demo, with a demo of integrating Thomson Reuters Intelligent Tagger into Fusion and showing how these things, where he's kind of showing you at the per document level, how you can then leverage that across your entire collection. So let me switch back to the slides here, and we can carry on from here. Okay, so for those who aren't familiar, as Ofer said earlier and Aaliyah introduced, my name is Grant Ingersoll. I'm the CTO and co-founder of the company. I've been a long-time Lucene and Solr contributor, as well as I started the Apache Mahout machine learning project, and I wrote a book called Taming Text. As far as Lucidworks, if you're not familiar with us, we're based in San Francisco. We've been at this kind of Solr and search thing for quite some time now. You can see some of the stats here about where we are, who we are, et cetera. At the end of the day, I think the key thing we bring to the table these days is Lucidworks Fusion. So I thought what I would do is give a little bit about how we think about search in this space and kind of what's going on, and then talk a bit about what Fusion does, how we think about Fusion, and then we'll get into the use cases. When I think about our mission here at Lucidworks, I think it's really founded off of a couple of key things that we see happening in the industry. And first and foremost, it's just, the realization that we've all had that our day-to-day lives are often driven a lot by how Google and Amazon do things. That's how we access information in our consumer life. And so that's what we all want in our professional lives as well. And so one of our goals at Lucidworks is to make sure those things happen. The second kind of key underlying principle when I think about all this search space, if you will, all this data, this unstructured content like what Ofer was talking about, is that there's a lot more to the problem than just putting keywords into a box and getting back 10 blue links. That's kind of the proverbial search use case. But in our experience, once you start to dig deeper, you realize that oftentimes users also need a lot of help with discovery, and that's something the intelligent tagging tool can really help enable, especially in these financial use cases. And then the third part is more and more we want to better understand how our users are interacting with the data. And so we really need a system that can help drive analytics. And so that's why I like to say, search, discovery, and analytics are three sides of the same coin. Search is one side, discovery is another, and then I often think analytics is that edge of the coin. And all of that then leads into kind of the third pillar, if you will, when I think about what we're trying to accomplish at Lucidworks, is we really want to make it easier for you to understand your users. And I often think a lot of the times the reason why enterprise applications fail is because they fail to understand the users. And so one of the things we set out to do in building Fusion is make it easier, faster, shorter, more efficient for you as an application developer to understand your users. And I'll talk about how we do that here in a second. The primary way we deliver out to our customers is through our flagship product called Lucidworks Fusion. When I think about Fusion, I think about it being built on three key principles. The first one is just echoing off of that notion of understanding users is how do we better understand users so that we can deliver better, more efficient results, so we can help you take that next best action. We can help you understand what's important. And one of the things we've been really pioneering in the enterprise space with Fusion is this ability to capture what we call signals. A signal being anything that a user or a downstream system does with that data, with your core data, that then helps you better understand what they care about. The simplest example of a signal is a click, but it also might be an email or the fact that you all showed up on this webinar. All of those things are little tidbits that by themselves aren't necessarily all that interesting, but once you start to aggregate them, once you start to understand broad sections of those signals or all of them together, you can have a much better and deeper understanding of your content. And it's really when you combine those two things together that you see really powerful things happen with applications. It's no longer good enough to just focus on the content. You have to have the richness of the content like what intelligent tagging brings to the table, but then you also have to overlay on that this understanding of your users. We, of course, realizing that machines aren't perfect, we bring to the table capabilities for you to curate and edit your results as well in Fusion. And we do that all in the context of trying to help you approach relevance and importance and knowing what matters in your data in a much more scientific way. In the past, a lot of systems were very heavily rule-oriented, but people didn't even necessarily know what rules mattered. We try to bring those things up and out via our experiment management capabilities that help you track what's going on in your system, help you understand not only what users did, but why they did it. The second key principle is really, we as a company have been at this for a while. I think personally I've seen probably every search use case under the sun. And so one of the things we want to make sure we do is really simplify application development, make it easier for you to build out what you care about in your environment. And we do that by basically looking at what are all the different types of things you might do. We've built out a number of connectors. We know getting data into the system is important. We know you need to be able to transform that data, apply your business logic to it. We know you need to be able to do that in a dynamic way. We know you need to be able to do that in a secure way. And so a lot of what we've done in Fusion is build in that kind of functionality, pipelines, connectors, security, tools for understanding what's going on with your system, previewing changes, staging changes before they go into production. All of those things we've thought about in Fusion and are building capabilities around. The third really pillar to all of this is we want to build out on technologies that you're familiar with, that you can get help on, that you can find, you can extend, et cetera. And so we start, those who know us, we started off as the Solr company. We've extended that quite a bit these days. The two key technologies underneath the hood in Fusion are Solr and Spark. But then we take and we bring things to the table like a SQL interface such that you can use all of your traditional SQL tools like Tableau, like Jupyter, like your data science notebooks. We back that up with people who have deep experience building out search applications, building out machine learning applications, and that really then forms the cornerstone of Fusion. We'll come back a little bit later and talk about what this architecture looks like underneath the hood, but for now what I thought we would do is take a break and switch over to talking about some use cases. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Ofer, and he's going to talk about the main Thomson Reuters Fusion integration use case.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. So our partnership with Lucidworks, Thomson Reuters and Lucidworks, we're mainly addressing investment management firms that are trying to make sense of their content. They have internal research. They have a lot of external content like other sell-side research or conference call transcripts, news. So often or in the past, they have those type of content in silos. So they had to search for news in one application and for internal research in the internal portal and things like that. The game changer here is really having a single unified user experience search across all the content sets of the firm, or specifically all the research-related content. So it would be internal, it will be external. All of them will have a single user experience capability, and all the content will be tagged uniformly with intelligent tagging. So a company name will be represented in the same way, the same Perm ID that we mentioned across all the content sets. So once you type the company name for an event, you will get different documents coming from different content sets, either internal or external, but in a single unified experience rather than searching here, searching there. So that's the power of having a integrated, commingled search. And investment research is one use case. The wealth management is another one to really power the wealth manager portal search. So those are the main two use cases that Thomson Reuters and Lucidworks are partnering together, and we have quite a lot of success in providing value to our clients. Back to you, Grant.
Yeah, Yeah, thanks, Ofer. And just to hit on this as well, I mean, this is something where, as I look out on the market, and one of the things that's really powerful about like this, at its core, essentially this Perm ID notion, is that as you're bringing in all of these different data types, you have essentially this identifier that you can pivot through, and you can use that identifier to start to link across lots of disparate types of data sources. And that feeds really well into the search engine capability because, for those who are familiar with search engine technology, it's very much about these fuzzy relationships where you often want to pivot through data. You start with a keyword here, and then you do some faceting, you do some analytics, and then you're kind of pivoting your way through the content. And so all of these tags, and hopefully people will see this in the demo, is all of these tags provided out by the intelligent tagger then are additional pivot points. And that really can lead to that serendipitous moment, that aha moment that I think so many people in investment research and wealth management are looking for these days because they're trying to find that next bit of insight that nobody else has seen. So with that, I thought what I would do too is share one other use case on our side. This really kind of underscores the analytics side of the house. One of the things that we bring to the table with Fusion is you can also crunch the numbers, as it were, right? So Ofer talked a lot about at the beginning. We've got intelligent tagger to take unstructured data and make it structured. We can also do things like take in stock price information and more quantitative style things and now bring those in as well. And so you can start to, for instance, do searches for terms and keywords and terminology and all of that, but then very quickly and easily start to do roll-ups on that, do your analytics, do your machine learning, your logistic regressions, all of those kinds of things. And in fact, we've been in a number of cases where this exact use case of bringing together the structured and unstructured content, tagging in intelligent ways, and then also providing kind of that customer 360 view or that analytical view over the data can really lead to some interesting capabilities. And in fact, you can see here, even in this particular use case, we've seen some pretty significant improvements over legacy systems here on the capabilities that those systems provide out of the box, i.e. the analytics capability. And then, oh, by the way, bonus round, you get to do search as well. And so those are kind of two of the initial use cases we've been focusing on as partners in this. What I thought then we would do is shift gears and talk a little bit about what does this look like underneath the hood. Both Ofer and I are techies at heart, so let's talk architecture a little bit, and then we'll get in and do a demo. And I think we should have some time at the end for questions as well. So starting off with Fusion, this is our core architecture. For those who aren't familiar, I mentioned earlier we start off with kind of Spark and Solr at the core of everything we do. So those are on the right-hand side here. Solr is essentially our database. It's our query engine. It's the thing we ask most of our questions of. It's the thing that says, what's the best known state of my data? Solr is very, very scalable. We have customers who have hundreds of billions with a B documents in them. We have customers who do millions of writes per second into Solr, and we have customers who do tens, if not hundreds of thousands of queries per second as well. So as they say in the old country, it's a very fast, very scalable engine. We've then married that with Spark, and Spark you can kind of think about as my offline compute engine. It's the thing I want to use to make my data smarter. It's the thing I want to do to analyze all of my documents at once. It's the thing I want to use to build recommendation models or machine learning models. The last little bucket on the right there is Zookeeper. At the end of the day, that's the tool I like to tell your DevOps people is the thing that gives them their nights and weekends back. It's the thing that makes all of this stuff stable. If you're not familiar with it, it just kind of works behind the scenes. You don't have to worry too much about it, but it takes care of knowing who's up, who's down, and scaling and fault tolerance and all of that kind of stuff. Moving to the left then, our core services, this is where we add value on top of the open source within those two key ways that I talked about earlier. One, we're either asking smarter questions of the engines, so things like recommenders, machine learning, natural language processing, integrating with TRIT, all of that kind of stuff, all are key factors on asking smarter questions of the data. And the other side of the other one is just, hey, there's a bunch of plumbing that often goes into building applications, and so we can take a lot of that plumbing off of your workload. So things like security and scheduling and alerting and connectors and all of that kind of stuff. We present it all out via REST API, so you can connect to this using, your standard development best practices these days, REST and JSON. And then we have user interfaces on top of all of those, including a kit of parts that allows you to very fast, very quickly build applications. And I'll show you all of these things in the demo here in a minute. But before we get to that, I thought I would hand it back over to Ofer, and he can talk a little bit more about how this stuff actually gets deployed.
Thanks, Grant. So this is the architecture that runs behind the scene on the Thomson Reuters side. So intelligent tagging is a service. It's not a software that installed. Usually our financial clients are installing behind their firewall, but even though the servers, the intelligent tagging servers, they always, at a resolution of 15 minutes, consume data from Thomson Reuters. So that's the number one line that you see. For every content set, whether there are companies or corporate actions or people data, there are people and automation behind the scene of the Thomson Reuters operations that are collecting data, curating that, making sure that it's correct, and updating the databases. Intelligent tagging then pulls that data. So imagine there's a new management change, so a new CEO is coming into the company. That information will be fed into intelligent tagging as soon as our data analysts are updating the database. Or imagine there is a new acquisition announced. As soon as this is becoming an announcement or even a rumored one, it's being updated by our data analysts. And that new information is becoming available on the Thomson Reuters intelligent tagging, even though it's running on the customer side, so behind your firewall. And then you can see the number 2 phase here is where the client can send documents, the read documents, and receive back the metadata. Can you go to the next slide, Grant, and we can show how that translates into search. So the same workflow, but now we're incorporating the Lucidworks data. The Lucidworks will, if you click more on the mouse, you will get all the workflow. So number 1, the Lucidworks will pull data from different databases within your databases, whether they are SharePoint or other databases. We'll pull the data, we'll send the data to intelligent tagging behind the scene. Everything is transparent. Intelligent tagging will send back to the Lucidworks engine the structured metadata to be indexed, and then the search becomes much more intelligent, and the semantic metadata will be reflected in the search index. So the bottom line is it's not a software, it's something that is always up to date with the most up-to-date financial data coming from Thomson Reuters, and the solution of Lucidworks and Thomson Reuters intelligent tagging provides kind of a most up-to-date financial search engine.
Great, thanks, Ofer. Yeah, and I think one of the things that I've seen just in the time I've been spending with the solution is that up to date really leads to really high quality results, and that kind of awareness of always what's happening in the news, which I'm sure you could speak to, feeds in from the news organization that you have in place. And basically, you're kind of distilling that news organization in a lot of ways into the intelligent tagger, which then allows customers of the solution to have kind of the best of both worlds in terms of applying the latest and greatest from their data to or the latest and greatest from Thomson Reuters into their data, not just on your traditional news feeds either. Great, so with that, let me switch over to Chrome. Bear with me 1 minute while I get out of my environment. And what I'm going to do here is we put together a little demo that shows these two things together, and we're just calling it Finance 360. The idea here is, as a user, I'm interested in what's happening in the news. I'm interested in seeing the entities and events and relationships that aren't just in one document but go across documents. And I'm also interested in, of course, being able to search and track information related to things I care about, companies I care about, et cetera. So this is an example application that we put together. It's based off of a couple of different news sources that we went out and crawled off of the web. We also brought in some historical stock price data as well. I will show you a little bit on the back end of what this looks like in Fusion as well. And in fact, we have the back end available as open source project that you can run yourself on Fusion, assuming you have access also to the Thomson Reuters side. So of course you can reach out to us and we're happy to help you with that. So what I'm going to do is just make sure I'm properly logged in, and of course live demos being what they are, I'm not. So let me just reset. And what we've kind of done is started off with a dashboard style view here, where I've gone off and in the background I've indexed a bunch of these collections. I've based it off of companies in the S&P 500, but of course you could bring in other data sources as well, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a minute. And just, you know, right off the get-go, there's a couple of things to note. We've got all of the latest in news. This is just off of a recent crawl I did about an hour ago. Down the middle here, and then over on the right, we've got this notion of portfolios. You can actually, using some of the TwigKit capabilities, which is a partner UI that we're using, you're able to set up bookmarking and sharing and collaboration features in search. And so I've got this notion of portfolios, and then on the right here, you can see these things like top events. These are all looking at all of the content in the latest stories and extracting them out, and then we're essentially faceting on that data. So as that data is flowing in from the crawls that we're doing of the web, we're sending the data off to Thomson Reuters to the intelligent tagger to be tagged. And then on the main landing page here, what we're doing is just faceting and searching across that. And so then what I can do is I can come in here and click over to the companies page. And now what you're seeing is search over the companies page. So you can see companies that maybe are familiar with you, things like PNC Financial Services, H&R Block, Hey, It's Tax Day, Philip Morris, Aflac, etc. And what we're doing here now is actually digging in a little bit deeper on this company data. So for instance here, we're actually bringing in from the historical data, I'm bringing in, I believe this is the close price for PNC as of yesterday or as of whenever it was the last time I crawled that. And then you can see here we're also then joining at query time with the Thomson Reuters news data that's coming in and being tagged by the intelligent tagger to show some of the top events and or entities associated with PNC Financial Services. I haven't crawled all of this data, so that's why there's none here, but you can see as we scroll down, places like companies like Philip Morris or Aflac or Allergen or, hey, my favorite company, Ingersoll Rand, you can see some of the different content extracted from those. And then what I can do is go in and actually click on a company, and one of the things we do with TwigKit here is go off and pull in things like Wikipedia information and some of the information that Ofer showed you on the permanent ID page. We bring that stuff in to the application here as well. We then go and also do a join with that historical stock data that we indexed, and I'll show all of this to you here in a minute on the Fusion backend, but I wanted to give you a tour of kind of the things that are possible here in building an application. So again, now you see, we've shown things like the extractions we get from Intelligent Tagger. We've shown how you can bring in a bunch of different data source types ranging from news to Wikipedia content through to actual numeric data. And then down the chain here, even for this specific company, we've now got data that's loosely related with that company. One of the things that we're doing here is crawling some web sources that have a lot of different information on them. We can restrict that down more if you want. But you can see, for instance, we're also faceting on some of the attributes brought in by Thomson Reuters, Intelligent Tagger, as well as a few other pieces there. So one of the things I can then do as an analyst, let's say I'm interested in P&C. Well, they're not really a tech company, so let's set up a portfolio around financial services. I'm going to come over here and call it financial. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to go back to my company view. And now I want to add that into my portfolio. I apologize, my network's a little bit slow at the moment because I'm screen sharing. And now I can say, now I can select the right one and say add to financial. And that gets added in the background. And then, for instance, the next time when I log in on my home screen, what you'll start to see is we've started to tailor the content that is returned to you and the events and the people and things like that towards the content that is in the portfolio of the user. So if I added more companies here, if I added more tech stocks or things like that, you would start to see all of this reshaped a bit more here. What's happening here is there's a bunch of talk around P&C as they relate to what's going on with layoffs and reorg and all of that kind of stuff. And if you wanted to know more, you could then drill in. And I think that when I last looked at the data, what was happening is P&C Financial Services had some commentary or had some information relating to, as you can see, some company layoffs or company reorgs. As you added in more and more of your portfolio, you would see that come through. We can, of course, do searches in this space. We can search across our news here as well. So I know I've, for instance, done some searching around for Accenture. You can see some of the extractions we've done here as well. And so this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg, if you will, in terms of the content. So let's shift gears a little bit. You've seen kind of some of these extractions. Let's look a little bit underneath the hood at how this is being done, because you can see then, we could start to pivot through this data. We could find richer relationships. And so I might want to do some of that modeling out on the Fusion side. So I'm just going to jump over to the Fusion admin UI. I'm already logged in. Fusion is a multi-tenanted, multi-collection application. So you can see I've got a bunch of different collections here. We've created one called Finance. I'm going to select that and go into the Search tab. And let me just back out a bit. One of the things we try to do with the Fusion admin UI is give it kind of that IDE style approach or integrated development environment. If you're a programmer, this should feel pretty comfortable for you. The idea here is as an application developer, you can build out on top of a number of different tools and capabilities that we have in Fusion. So one of the first things we can do is let's take a little bit deeper look at what's going on with this data, right? So for instance, what I can do is come in and pick a particular company. I happen to be an Apple fanboy, so let's choose Apple press releases. And what Fusion will do is actually go out and grab some sampling of that data and run it through the pipelines. It'll do some parsing of that data, et cetera. And then you as an end user can now see what's going on with this particular data. You can then use that to model your schema, to make decisions about how you want to search this data, how you want to facet on this data, all of those kinds of things. So as a quick tour here in the index workbench, you can see right up front here we have our data source. And if you look in, I'll show you here in a second, on the data sources, you'll see I have something like 50 or 100 different data sources defined. I just happen to choose this particular one that goes out and crawls particular data off of Yahoo Finance, and I've done a little bit of control on what I want to parse. So for instance, I'm using our JSoup capabilities to extract out the byline time and date on this data. Or, for instance, I'm also setting up some regular expressions that say what URLs I want to crawl. I can then feed that into parsers. These know about things like PDFs and HTML files and all of those kinds of things. And then that all feeds into Fusion pipelines. And this is where the TRIT, as we call it, Thomson Reuters Intelligent Tagging System, plugs in. And so I've got set up a pipeline here that walks through that data and applies different types of TRIT actions onto that data, with the outcome then being what you see over on the right. So for instance, in this particular document, which is just straight off of the Yahoo Finance Apple page, you can see things like it's finding these various different things in orange here. These are of different levels of quality, as Ofer can probably comment on. The way TRIT handles this data is it has things that are called high value options. It has medium value and low value. And those basically reflect the confidence that TRIT has in tagging that. So this is one of the really powerful things as an application developer. Is I know in my own personal experience when I'm dealing with NLP systems, I often don't know how good does the system actually think this data is. And so one of the things we're doing here is just mapping out those different quality capabilities from TRIT into different fields in Fusion. And then, of course, I can make a decision at application time as to how much I care about them. Yeah, go ahead, TRIT.
Right, it's actually relevant. Yeah, it's actually representing a combination of a relevance and a confidence. So high value would be these companies are with high relevance to the document. So you mostly want to search on the high value. But, you know, if you really want to get accurate results, if you want to get everything, you care less about if it's accurate or not, then you would include the medium value and the low value as well. So you have the configuration, as you mentioned, to configure that based on the use case. There are use cases that you want to get everything, you don't want to miss anything. But there are other use cases where you don't have enough time, but you really want to search for only the accurate, search what you're really looking for, and don't bring me noise, don't bring me things that I haven't searched for. So this is where you would look for the high value.
Yeah, and that's perfect, Ofer. And in fact, in the UI side of it, that I was showing you, the Finance 360 app, what we did, the way we came about choosing the ones we did is we did this index workbench. We simulated what was going on across a number of different documents. We looked at the tags we were getting, or the values and tags we were getting back from TRIT, and then we made decisions. Oh, I want to show this high value one here, or I want to do search across that field, and then we, for this particular application, we said, well, we don't really care about the lower confidence ones, so we index them, but we're not displaying them on the page, right? And that, to me, is one of the really powerful things here in bringing these two together, is you have a way to very quickly see what each individual document, how it performs, but then you have a way with Fusion, with the faceting and search across it to see it go out across all of the content. And so, you can very quickly, for instance, in our query workbench on the flip side, see how these things are playing out. So for instance, I've got all my historical data. If I wanted to just facet in on the press release data, I can do that. I can come over here. I can add fields for faceting. I can take away fields. I might look at, for instance, what are some of the attributes being brought back in by the system. I might say, oh, well, this one has company events. Maybe I should add in a facet for company events. And let me scroll down there just so that shows up on the screen.
Grant, do you have the auto suggest, autocomplete enabled here?
I don't have it on here, but you can see, that's something we can easily wire in with this application. So, and then I can save, I can apply. You can see the results automatically updated, and then you can go and look back in your UI, and for instance, those facets would show up and all of those kinds of things. I don't know why my screen is doing that at the moment, but I can also come in here and do the back-end results. Sorry, let me clear my facets there. So the idea here is that in Fusion on the back-end admin UI, you've got this integration with Thomson Reuters where you're seeing the results come in at index time. You're essentially joining your live content as it flows through the index pipelines, and I showed you that in the index workbench. That then lands in Solr, and then you can search across it. We could do machine learning, some of these background things on it that come with Fusion. And then on the query side, as an application developer, I start in this query workbench and kind of use it as a way of better understanding what my data is, such that I can then go build something like this Finance 360 application. So that's a quick tour of Fusion. It's a quick tour of Thomson Reuters intelligent tagging. Looks like we've got a few minutes left here where I think, Ofer and I are happy to answer any questions. So let me just switch back to the slides for that. If you have any questions, please pop them into the chat box on the webinar service. Otherwise, while Aaliyah is teeing those up, I'll leave you with a few resources where you can go find out more. So Aaliyah, if you've got some questions, we're happy to take them.
Great. Thank you guys both. So we do have some questions. If we don't have time to get to your question today, a member of our team will reach out to you. So the first question that we have, I believe this question is for you, Ofer. It is in regards to the demo that you were doing, and the question is, what if a Perm ID does not exist for the entity?
Yeah, it's a good question. So in the financial organization authority within Thomson Reuters, there are mostly financial related companies, but it's quite, it covers international companies, all the international, definitely public companies, but also private companies, around 4 million companies. Companies that are not in that authority will still be identified as the company name, but the Perm ID will not be assigned to them because it doesn't exist. So companies will be identified as companies, not just named. It will say this is a company and that's the name, but Perm ID will not be assigned.
Thank you. So the next question, and I'm not sure exactly which one of you this is for, but the question is, are the TRIT pipeline stages part of the Fusion application?
Yeah, so those are part of the joint solution that we have together. Right? So, we bring them to bear when we're in a situation where we have both TRIT and Fusion as part of the offering. Thank you.
The next question is, what kinds of query intent could be done by leveraging Fusion and TRIT?
Wow, that's a great question. So query intent is, something that's pretty common these days in search applications, especially large consumer-facing search applications. The idea being that by understanding what the intent of the user is, you might decide to behave differently or make different choices at search time, right? And so, for instance, if somebody comes onto your website and they're clearly looking for research, you might filter or apply filters or apply specific types of search algorithms on the research side, versus if they came in and asked more of a support style question, hey, how do I open up my account? The intent side of it would be able to determine that, and then maybe just filter your content to only your support site or something along those lines. One of the things that I think is really interesting with TRID on the indexing side is we now have this, essentially this vocabulary, this dictionary of useful terms and phrases and all of that apply to things like companies and people and events and all of that stuff. And so while there's nothing out of the box, there is then this ability to leverage it as part of things like your auto-suggest, your type-ahead search, your ability to use it in your query pipelines to do intent-based reasoning. So, for instance, you might look up and see whether parts of the query are company names or other entities that TRIT has extracted, and then use that to then apply a label onto that as to what the intent is. You might also mix that in with some other Fusion machine learning capabilities to learn more of those intent models. And then, of course, you can then, from downstream in the pipeline, change your query, change what you're searching against, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely something that could be leveraged together. Unfortunately, not something I have right in a ready-made demo right out of the box right now. I don't know, Ofer, if you had any other thoughts on that.
No, that's right on. I think we have a couple of more questions. I can take it. Yeah, there's another one. How intelligent tagging deployed on a customer end? So the Thomson Reuters team will help the clients deploy. There's a software site on the Thomson Reuters side that customers can download the software and install it. You open an HTTP port to be able to consume data, constantly consume data from the Thomson Reuters side. And on the Lucidworks side, there's a automatic connection to that server. So both will be installed. The Lucidworks Fusion and the intelligent tagging will be installed in separate servers, but they will communicate between themselves. It's part of the solution.
Great, thank you. So we're just coming up on the top of the hour, so we won't take any more questions, but again, we did have a bunch, so we'll go ahead and follow up with those of you whose questions we were not able to answer today. Everyone who registered for this webinar will receive an email with a link to both the slides and the recording in the next few days, so look out for that. If you have any outstanding questions, feel free to email us at events@lucidworks.com, and we'll get you connected with the right person to answer that for you. So thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the session, and thanks to Grant and Ofer for your presenting. Have a great day.
Thanks, Aaliyah. Thanks, Ofer.
Thank you.